Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Commander Alex Mercer stared out of the shattered window of the downed ship, his face lit by the eerie, flickering light of the interstellar storm as it raged across the horizon. Waves of stardust, each particle gleaming like tiny shards of glass, filled the air. The storm had hit them without warning, shattering the Earth fleet as if it were nothing more than paper caught in a violent wind. Most of the ships had been destroyed now. He and a handful of survivors were stranded on a planet none of them had ever heard of, an uncharted wasteland covered in stardust. He heard a sound behind him. Dr. Elara Quinn stepped forward, her boots crunching on the metal debris that littered the floor. Her dark hair was tied back, and her face was smeared with dust. She had the wide-eyed, haunted look that had become familiar to all of them in the past few days. "Any sign of the others?" she asked, her voice strained. Alex shook his head. "Number just us for now." They had lost contact with most of the fleet, whether the other ships had been destroyed or simply scattered. He didn't know. He doubted they would find any survivors, but for the sake of morale, he couldn't say that out loud. "We're running out of time," Alex said, or Lara said quietly. "Our oxygen levels are low, and the environmental stabilizers are failing. We can't stay here much longer." Alex ran a hand through his hair, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him like a physical force. As the commander, it was his job to keep them alive, but right now he had no answer. They were stranded on a hostile planet with no hope of rescue and dwindling supplies. "There's something out there," Mama added, her eyes distant. "I've been scanning the area. I think I've found something ancient ruins buried under the stardust. They're close, maybe a day's walk from here." Alex glanced at her, eyebrows raised. "Ruins? What kind of ruins?" "I don't know," she admitted, hyped, but they're massive. "And if there are any structures still intact, there could be technology, something we can use to survive." He wanted to argue, to point out that wandering into unknown territory could get them all killed, but he knew she was right. Staying put was not an option. The storm had ravaged their ship, and without some form of shelter or resources, they wouldn't last much longer. The decision was made. "Get the others ready," Alex said, his voice grim. "We move out at first light." The next morning, the storm had died down, leaving behind a desolate landscape of glittering dust. The survivors, 4 in total, gathered at the edge of the wreckage. Lieutenant Marcus Hayes, their military officer, stood with his arms crossed, his face hardened by the days of struggle. Sarah Valen, the ship's engineer, was adjusting her oxygen mask, her young face streaked with sweat and dirt. The last member of their group, a quiet medic named Jensen, checked their makeshift supply. "We heading into that?" Hayes asked, his voice carrying a note of skepticism as he stared out over the horizon where the stardust glittered like snow beneath the pale sun. "Ruins are out there," Alex said, his tone firm. "They need to see if there's anything useful." Hayes narrowed his eyes but said nothing. The tension between them had been growing ever since the crash, but Alex knew that keeping the team together was vital to their survival. He could feel Hayes' growing impatience with his decisions, but there was no room for a power struggle now. They set out across the dust plains, the stardust shifting beneath their feet like fine sand. The air was thin, making each breath an effort. The planet seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, the ground humming faintly beneath them, as if the stardust itself was alive. Every now and then, Alex would glance back to make sure everyone was keeping pace. Elara was at the front, her handheld scanner buzzing intermittently as she searched for signs of the ruin. Hours passed and the landscape began to change. Dark, jagged shapes rose from the dust, broken towers, half-buried walls, and strange, angular structures that jutted out of the ground at odd angles. The ruins looked ancient, their surfaces worn smooth by time and weather. Some were covered in strange inscriptions that none of them could read. "This is it, lover," whispered her voice, filled with awe. They stood at the edge of a massive structure, a sprawling complex of stone and metal that stretched out in every direction. It was unlike anything any of them had ever seen. The architecture was alien, the angles and designs completely foreign to human eye. But there was something else, something unsettling about the place. "I don't know." "Like this," Hayes muttered, his hand resting on his sidearm. "We don't know what's in there." Elara ignored him, her focus on the scanner. There's out there. Saw power source here. Guys, she said, her voice tinged with excitement. That something is still active. Sarah frowned. How is that possible? This place must be thousands of years old. That's what we were here to find out. They ventured deeper into the ruins, the atmosphere growing heavier with each step. The air seemed to buzz with energy, and strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls as they passed. The deeper they went, the more the ruins began to resemble a labyrinth, with twisting corridors and hidden chambers. Alex felt a sense of unease settle over him, but he pushed it aside. They had to press on. In one of the larger chambers, they found what appeared to be a control center. The walls were lined with alien consoles, some of them still flickering with faint light. In the center of the room was a massive circular device that pulsed with a strange rhythmic hum. Ilara's eyes widened as she approached the device, her fingers brushing the surface. There, this is incredible. It's all still functional. Functional or not, we don't know what it does. Harry Hayes warned, his tone sharp. Yeah, we need to be careful. But Ilara was already lost in her excitement. Tarl, this could be the key to understanding this planet, maybe even the key to our survival. Alex could feel the tension rising. Right now, let's take it slow, Tal, he said, trying to calm the situation. Tal, we don't know what we're dealing with. But it was too late. Eliara activated something on the console, and the device in the center of the room began to pulse faster, its hum growing louder. The ground beneath them trembled, and the walls seemed to shimmer, as if the ruins were waking up after centuries of slumber. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber, a voice that wasn't human. It was deep and resonant, speaking in a language none of them understood. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter, and the air around them seemed to warp and bend, as if reality itself was being distorted. What the hell is that? Sarah gasped, her eyes wide with fear. Alara was transfixed, her eyes locked on the device. Drake, it sent them Tal, she whispered. Dale is just... Alex grabbed her arm, pulling her back. Trey, we need to get out of here now. But before they could move, the voice grew louder, filling the chamber with a deafening roar. The device pulsed one final time, and then with a blinding flash of light, everything went dark. Alex woke to silence. His head was pounding and his vision blurred as he tried to make sense of his surroundings. They were still in the ruins, but everything had changed. The air felt heavy, oppressive, and the walls no longer glowed. The device in the center of the room was dark, its hum gone. Everyone, okay? He croaked, his voice hoarse. One by one, the others stirred. Alara was lying on the floor, her face pale, but she was alive. Sarah was groaning, clutching her head, while Hayes staggered to his feet, his expression grim. What just happened? Sarah asked, her voice shaky. Alara sat up, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear. Trissar, we made contact. Alex frowned. With what? The elder said, her voice barely above a whisper. They were still here, Alex. Their consciousnesses, they were trapped in the ruin. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He glanced at the dark device in the center of the room, a sinking feeling in his gut. They had awoken something ancient, something that should have stayed buried. The silence hung heavy after Alaria's words. Alex's mind raced as he tried to process what she was saying. Consciousnesses trapped in the ruins. The idea was absurd, yet the evidence was all around them. Something had happened when Alara activated the device. The entire atmosphere had changed, the sense of stillness replaced by an undercurrent of tension, as if the very air was waiting for something. We need to leave, Hayes said, his voice slow but insistent. Now, whatever that thing did, it's not good. We can too stay here. Alex was inclined to agree, but Alara shook her head, her eyes still fixed on the dormant machine in the center of the room. Remember, we can just walk away from this, don't you understand? This could be our only chance to understand what happened here, to figure out how this planet works, how we can survive. Sarah, still clutching her head, looked up at Alara with a mix of disbelief and fear. You were talking about things none of us understand. What if you triggered something dangerous? Alara hesitated, but then a steely resolve came over her. We were already in danger, all of us. This planet, it's alive in ways we can't even comprehend. These ruins, this technology, it's the key to everything. If we don't try to understand it, we're as good as dead anyway. Hayes' hand hovered near his weapon, his knuckles white, We don't too need to understand it. We need to survive, and right now that means getting as far away from this place as possible. Alex stood between them, feeling the growing divide. If Hayes and Alara clashed, now it would be disastrous. He had to make a decision, and fast. The weight of leadership pressed down on him harder than ever. Every instinct told him that Hayes was right. This place felt wrong, hostile. But Alara was entirely wrong either. Their resources were running out. If they did find something soon, something to help them, they wouldn't make it. And if these ruins did hold the key to their survival, they couldn't afford to walk away. Alara, Alex said, his voice firm but calm. We can't risk staying here any longer. We'll take what readings we can and leave. We regroup outside and figure out our next move, but we can't afford to trigger anything else. Understood? For a moment, it looked like she might argue, but then she gave a reluctant nod, her face tight with frustration. She picked up her scanner again and began collecting as much data as she could without touching the device. Let's make it quick, Alex added. We don't know how long we have before something else happens. As they prepared to leave, the walls around them began to shimmer once more, the alien symbols flickering faintly. It was as though the ruins were waking up again, reacting to their presence. The ground beneath them vibrated softly, and a low, rhythmic hum echoed through the chamber. Alex's heart pounded. We need to move now. The team started back through the winding corridors of the ruins, their pace quickening as the hum grew louder. The walls seemed to close in around them, the once faint glow of the symbols growing brighter with each step. Every instinct in Alex screamed danger. This place wasn't meant for them. They had crossed a line, and now the ruins were responding in ways they couldn't predict. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the air, not the deep, resonant tone from before, but something else. It was high-pitched, sharp, and disjointed like static breaking through an old radio transmission. Words in a language they didn't truly understand filled the corridors, overlapping and repeating. It was as though the ruins were trying to speak to them, but the message was garbled, incomprehensible. What is that? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Alara, Alex turned to her, hoping for some kind of explanation, but her face was pale, her eyes wide with shock. I don't know, she stammered. It's not the same as before. This is something new. Before Alex could respond, the ground beneath them shook violently. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling, and the walls seemed to ripple as if reality itself was warping around them. The symbols on the walls flared to life, glowing so brightly that it hurt to look at them. We ran out of time, Hayes yelled, his hand now firmly on his weapon move. They sprinted through the corridors, the hum growing louder with every step. Alex led the way, his heart racing as the vibrations in the floor became more intense. He could feel the ruins shifting beneath his feet, as though the very structure of the place was coming apart. Just as they neared the exit, a deafening roar filled the air. The walls buckled, and a massive crack split the ground in front of them, spewing a plume of stardust into the air. The dust swirled around them, glowing with an unnatural light, forming strange shifting shapes that hovered just out of focus. Alex shielded his eyes, his mind reeling. Keep going. We're almost there. They pushed forward, jumping over the crack in the ground and scrambling toward the entrance. The dust followed them, spiraling through the air like living creatures, twisting and writhing as though trying to reach out and pull them back. With a final burst of energy, they stumbled out of the ruins and collapsed onto the ground outside, gasping for breath. The air was thick with stardust, but it felt like freedom compared to the suffocating tension of the ruin. Behind them, the entrance to the ruins shuddered and began to collapse, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. For a moment, none of them spoke. They were too exhausted, too shaken by what had just happened. Alex lay on his back, staring up at the pale sky, his mind racing. They had barely made it out alive. Whatever power was in those ruins, it was far more dangerous than any of them had anticipated. After a long silence, Hayes finally spoke, his voice low and grim. I told you we shouldn't have gone in there. Alara sat up, her face pale but defiant. We had no choice, and now we know there's something here, something powerful. If we can figure out how to control it, it could save us. Hayes shook his head, or it could kill us all. You saw what happened in there. That place isn't a solution. It's a death trap. Alex knew Hayes had a point. The ruins were dangerous, unpredictable. But Alara was right too. They had discovered something incredible, something that might be the key to their survival. The problem was they had no way of knowing whether that power would save them or destroy them. We'll deal with it later, Alex said, his voice hoarse. For now, we need to focus on staying alive. They gathered what little supplies they had left and set up a temporary camp a safe distance from the ruin. The air around them still crackled with the strange energy of the planet, and the sky was a swirling mass of stardust, but for the moment they were safe. As the night wore on, Alex found himself staring at the ruins in the distance, the alien structures now partially buried in the dust. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had awoken something that should have stayed buried. The voice, the symbols, the strange energy, it was all connected. But he didn't know how, and the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he became. Alara approached him, her expression somber. "I've been going over the data we collected," she said quietly. I think the elders were trying to communicate with us, but something went wrong." Alex raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Their technology is ancient, far beyond anything we've actually ever encountered. But it's damaged, corrupted somehow. When I activated the device, I think it triggered a malfunction. That's why the communication was so garbled. The elders were trying to send us a message, but the system is too broken to function properly." "And what was the message?" Elamala hesitated, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. "I don't know, but whatever it was, I think it was a warning." Alex felt a chill run down his spine, a warning. He didn't like the sound of that, but there was no turning back now. They had crossed a line, and whatever they had awoken, it was out there, waiting. The night dragged on, and Alex sat in the dim light of their makeshift camp, his thoughts consumed by the ruins and the mystery they held. He knew that their survival depended on understanding the truth of this planet, but the deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. The elders' warning echoed in his mind, a constant reminder that they were treading on dangerous ground. And as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Alex made a silent vow. Whatever secrets this planet held, he would uncover them, but he would do it on his own terms, and he would keep his team alive, no matter the cost.